Well, hello and happy Friday to you all. It is July 17th, 2020 here at Cord Cutters News, and this is Cord Cutting Today, where we take a look back at the week's biggest news stories in cord cutting and streaming. And on today's show, we have a brand new streaming service to talk about. That would be NBC Universal's Peacock. Elsewhere, other streaming services are celebrating some record-breaking movie premieres. Another pirate operation gets shut down. Comcast brings some of its data caps back, and more. But first, as always, if you're new to this channel, please do consider clicking that like and or subscribe button down below. They're both extremely helpful, and they help support our channel and enable us to bring you more content in the future. And with all that being said, let's get into this week's news, and it starts with Peacock taking flight. Of course, one of the biggest stories this week is the launch of a major streaming service. And if you haven't heard by now, NBC Universal's Peacock service is up and running. Now, some of you on Xfinity Flex and X1 may have already tried the service out earlier this year, but this week marks the service's big, wide-scale launch. And it even launched a tad bit early, with NBC Universal flipping the switch on Tuesday night for some platforms. And earlier this week, we took a closer look at the service and highlighted 5 things you should know about Peacock, including its different tiers, content lineups, and hardware support. And speaking of hardware support, yes, like HBO Max back in May, Peacock did indeed launch without support for either Roku or Fire TV. But the various sides involved are reportedly still in talks, so we'll keep a close eye on things and of course let you know if anything changes on those fronts. For now, if you've given the new service a shot, what do you think so far? Of course, every service does things a little differently, from how apps perform to how menus are organized and more. So if there's anything sticking out to you so far, feel free to let us know in the comments down below. In other streaming news, we have reports regarding several successful movie premieres in recent years. First up is Apple TV Plus and its recent exclusive premiere of Tom Hanks' World War II drama Greyhound. Now, official stats and figures aren't available, but the film is rumored to have drawn a viewing audience comparable to a traditional movie theater blockbuster release. In fact, it's reportedly the largest opening weekend ever for Apple's still relatively new service, and that might offer some consolation to Hanks, who expressed some disappointment that his film couldn't receive the wide movie theater release that was originally planned before, of course, the coronavirus pandemic forced wide-scale shutdowns. Meanwhile, Hulu also broke records of its own recently thanks to the premiere of romantic comedy Palm Springs. The film attracted more viewers in its first 3 days than any movie on the service during that same time frame. Hulu says the film generated a huge amount of discussion on social media during its opening weekend as well. And it's probably a good thing the film is performing so strongly, considering that Hulu and distribution company Neon acquired the rights to the film for around $18 million. And if you've seen the movie, feel free to let us know what you thought in the comments below, but please be mindful of spoilers for those of us who haven't quite gotten around to it just yet. Moving on, Netflix did something new this week. It released a list of the top 10 most streamed original movies on the service, and as you might expect, there are some big names crowding the list. At the number 1 slot is Chris Hemsworth's Extraction, followed by Sandra Bullock's Bird Box. Now, in this case, Netflix is measuring success by tracking each movie's performance during the first 4 weeks of availability. By that measure, Extraction leads the way with 99 million views, followed by Bird Box's 89 million. Mark Wahlberg's Spencer Confidential sits in the 3rd spot with 85 million, followed closely by Ryan Reynolds' film Six Underground at 83 million. And it probably shouldn't be all that surprising that streaming services are hosting bigger and bigger movie hits, especially this year given the pandemic. But with Netflix revealing this kind of info for the very first time ever, it could be a sign that streaming companies are more actively positioning themselves as worthy alternatives to traditional movie theater releases. Of course, we've seen a few examples of movies being redirected to premiere on streaming services, like Greyhound, which we discussed earlier, but there are a few films where studios are still waiting on movie theater reopenings. Both Mulan and Tenet, expected to be 2 of the biggest releases of the summer, have seen multiple delays and pushbacks as their respective studios still hold out hope for a wide theatrical release. We've reported in the past how Warner Brothers said it needs around 80% of theaters to reopen and carrying Tenet in order for that film to make money, so it'll be interesting to see if Disney and Warner Brothers in particular continue to wait it out or start considering streaming alternatives. In the meantime, how many of those Netflix top 10s have you checked out so far? You know where to let us know. In other Netflix news, the company announced its second quarter earnings this week, and as you might imagine, with so many of us staying at home, streaming is booming. The company added a record 10.1 million subscribers during the second quarter, compared to about 2.7 million for the same period in 2019. Revenue is also up 25% compared to last year's second quarter, and the service now boasts just over 192 million subscribers. But despite adding 26 million paid subscribers in the first half of 2020, Netflix is readying for less impressive numbers for the latter half of the year. In other words, it's been and will continue to be a highly unusual and evolving 2020 for entertainment companies. In pirate news, we've seen a number of large pirate operations taken down in recent weeks, and this week saw the takedown of a service that was apparently being run out of a resort town in England. It eventually led to the arrest of 3 people and the seizure of some fancy assets, including luxury vehicles and designer clothes. The group allegedly sold illegal subscriptions to various services and broadcasters and illegal streaming devices. Charges so far include making or supplying articles for use in fraud, unauthorized use of a trademark, and concealing criminal property. But, as the site Torrent Freak points out, these types of cases also often involve charges of fraud and money laundering, which can lead to stiffer sentences. In all, it's been an eventful past few months for pirate providers. And hey, if you have a favorite pirate service, let us know in the comments below. That's a joke, by the way. I wouldn't do that, just so we're clear. Moving on, we have some updates regarding the FCC's Keep Americans Connected pledge. If you'll recall, the pledge, which was introduced way back in March, was created to give customers a bit of stability. Companies that signed on to the pledge promised to abide by certain guidelines meant to ensure that residents and small businesses didn't lose internet access during the coronavirus pandemic. The original 60-day period was later extended to the end of June, and we're starting to see companies now adjust some of their policies. AT&T, for one, announced it will keep waiving overage charges through September 30th, and that includes AT&T Fiber and AT&T Internet customers. That does not, however, extend to DSL, fixed wireless internet, or mobility plans. And while AT&T is keeping the waivers in place for some of its plans, Comcast data caps have returned for some customers. It's bumped up the limit though, moving from 1 terabyte per month to 1.2 terabytes per month. And for every 50 gigabytes that customers exceed that limit, they'll be charged $10. Comcast is also offering one free courtesy month where you can exceed the new data cap without being charged. It's worth pointing out that Comcast isn't enforcing the data cap for some of its customers in the northeast area of the US, where they face competition from Verizon's Fios service. And if you haven't checked your monthly usage in the past few months, as the data cap was waived, here's what it looks like now. This is the usage for our home, and you can see the upper limit has indeed been bumped up to 1.2 terabytes. And you can also see we do a whole lot of streaming in this household. Next up, it's officially that time of year again. It's time for the Cord Cutters News Summer Survey. Now, this is a great opportunity for our readers, viewers, and followers to let us know how you use our site, what services you're into, and what's important to you. That all helps us become a better site, a better YouTube channel, and more. So if you're interested in sharing your particular streaming habits and interests, you'll find a link to that post in the video description down below. And finally, we have a bit of sponsored content to mention, and as always with sponsored content, our opinions remain our own. With that being said, did you know David Hasselhoff is turning 68 today, and Free Broadcast Network Charge is putting on a Knight Rider marathon to celebrate. Starting at 10 a.m. Eastern today, you can check out 10 episodes of the show, and then the marathon tops it all off with the 1991 movie follow-up, Knight Rider 2000. And you can check out the details on Charge's website, and it's also available as part of Stir's free lineup. And that about wraps up the week that was here at Cord Cutting Today. A real quick programming note, I will be out next week, so I won't be able to bring you Cord Cutting Today for Friday the 24th. However, we still have updates on the channel next week, including Jess's live Q&A on Wednesday the 22nd. In any case, thank you so much for watching, and hey, if you're new here and would like to support the channel, please do consider clicking those like and subscribe buttons down below. They're a huge help, and you get to be part of an active and vibrant community. For now, though, I'm Philip Palermo. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you soon. Take care.